What's up?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome, one and all, the Skyward Star.
Fireside Chat number 25.
Number 25.
5x5.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
5 by 25.
We've been here for a while now.
A little bit.
Yeah. Slowly growing. We've seen many new faces, many old faces too.
Yeah.
How are all
People
of
making
you?
Yep, since we
funny
skipped
emotes.
a week, doesn't that make this 6 months?
Oh yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it might. Yeah, and we did skip 1 week. 6 months of Skyward Star development on the Theleston IP.
Indeed.
And other things. Yeah.
And other things. How about that?
Yeah. 6 months of growing my Santa beard.
Yeah. 6 months more white.
Yep. I'm trying to go for like a Walt Whitman. Ultimately, that's my goal. Just like a curtain.
Nice.
You're not gonna
When
pleat
it's
it
long
or
enough,
something?
I'm gonna square it and pleat it, so
Okay,
it'll be like Zeus, you know.
Yeah,
Very
I
nice.
think that's a good idea.
in.
Absolutely.
Man.
I want to go with a very long sort of vizier kind of thing. So you thought Jafar's was
Tufty and
menacing,
pointed.
but I want like even cleaner than yours, but pointed. Like
Yeah,
a very
I
long.
actually unpoint mine
Yeah.
on regular basis. I'll blunt it.
Yeah, you blunt it, but I want a very long point, but here really.
Yeah.
Everything else is sort of backed up.
Yeah,
That way
as
I
you
can
probably
do
all tell,
eventually
I'm
a
going.
dwarven
I think I've said
layered
it
thing.
before. I'm going for the Rasputin sort of squared, but as long as it'll go,
wispy.
you know, 'cause it's my philosopher's. It's my stroking beard.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's for thinking.
And this has
Thanks,
been
Dale.
our development chat on our facial hair.
On
Yep,
facial
that's
hair.
the beard status update.
That figures everybody. We get one comment per newbie about the beard status of this particular show, so might as well throw in there.
Well, at least for these two.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, kids,
What'd you do this week?
I did this week.
Yeah.
This week I wrote a story. Well, I began a story. It's not done yet. I began some story idea stuff, some writing. I also did some map stuff. I published one of the map videos for our patrons, and I've completed the artworks for and the publication of the Anakatha lore page on the website.
I'm looking at it right now.
Indeed,
It's
which
up.
if you go to the website right now, you can see.
Right now.
Yeah, it was supposed to be up yesterday.
You can see it right now?
And it was technically even.
Can you link it?
Published. It was published yesterday.
I can link it, and
But,
I will.
Sexy.
But I hadn't put it on the menu yet because I was a fool. And,
Check out that link in the
I'm
description.
still learning my
Not
WordPress
description.
foo.
Chat. It's not a YouTube video. What the fuck am I talking about?
It is a description. It's a description of what was said.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, there's that. I did though. That was Rose. That was conflation of other situations. We talked about that. We worked that out. It's never gonna happen that way again.
Yeah, I had the same thought, Rose. I laughed very, very, very hard in the dark part of my soul where I think about stuff like that. It was like, so you published that, did you?
Yep.
It's
been a long time coming. The other thing the other thing she cried about had to do with the other thing, and actually I'll be better at fixing this time because I do have the WordPress food to do edits now, whereas I didn't really before, but now I can do it pretty quickly, with very little fear. What else did I do? Oh, I worked on cool stuff, but you can't really hear about that.
Oh yeah,
other than to know that I worked on. Cool
I can
stuff.
actually see a couple.
and the map,
I can
of
actually
course.
see a couple of edits to that page. You're probably gonna want to make pretty much immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can read them from here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There are some titles I need to fix.
Yeah.
Evidently, my WordPress foo is not as good as I was, touting it.
3 of them.
Yeah, I can see 3.
Yeah, I can see 3 from here. Yeah.
Anyway,
I would
we'll work
laugh
on that.
harder, except that I am just as guilty as anybody else. Probably more so than some, in fact.
we're trying to sling. We're trying to go, man. We're trying to get
Right,
that.
we're trying to make up for the
Trying to
the
produce.
lack of time that we have.
Yeah. So there's that. So yeah, cool stuff. Story work for next story. Map stuff. Published map video. Published page on website. I think that's my Theleston week.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot.
It does.
It's about what I try to maintain on my Theleston weeks,
Yep.
except for the writing bit. I try to only write when it's my turn to write, except for the lore stuff that I have to. It's hard for me to find time to write, except when it's my turn to write, and so then I'm writing.
Yeah, I work very similarly. Most of the work that I did this week was on the Origin Matrix, though I did steal a little time from work yesterday to work on the bot, but we're not going to talk about that. We have a functioning Origin Matrix editor. Basically, all the stuff that was broken from the last stream is fixed now. And we have some basic nodes for the Origin Matrix, but we still need to write like a bazillion of them. So I'm experimenting with something like a web interface where you could suggest an Origin Matrix node, right? So there could be an editor into the data structure, right? And then it would just dump into a database, and then we can review them and approve them if we want them, and then I can move them into an Origin Matrix.
That's a really cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I can do that. I mean, in a worst case scenario, I could do it in Unity and it would just work, right? But it would look odd.
I
think I can do that the right way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I meant on the web.
Oh, I see what you mean. Oh, okay. Yeah, that would. I get it, because it'd be a Unity app running on the web.
Yeah, exactly.
Weird.
Which is a silly way to put a text form on a web page, given what fucking web pages are for.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Every now and then, when I load up the bot, I do feel a little like I'm loading up some '90s hackware. You know, like piracyware or something, because it's got that the DOP logo loads up in green, and it's all like, oh, it's big bubbly buttons, you know. But hey.
Yeah, they look like a Sega Genesis menu or
right.
like an early Dreamcast game.
Right, it's VGA, but the bubbles are big.
Yeah, makes me laugh.
So there's that.
But yeah, so if I had to do it that way, I could. But I think I can do it the right way, which is more like the modern bot, if you've seen it lately. Like if you watched my last stream with the bot, I finished it up. So it'll probably look more like that, just on the web.
Sweet.
But that'll help me, because if I realized during the stream, in fact, that if I sit there and write every node for the Origin Matrix, that's my stream for the next 12 weeks.
At least,
pretty much.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're gonna have to be operating from a list.
And I feel like that's kind of boring. I mean, fun if you're like into lore and stuff, I guess, but only fun like watching somebody write lore.
Yeah.
Sailcat has a good question.
Oh, for clarity's sake, does a node mean both a given scenario and possible responses, or does it also represent the web of forwards and afterwards for each given scenario? A node in the Origin Matrix, and this is actually the secret to how the Origin Matrix works. A node is a single prompt, all of its choices, as well as the potential outcomes of each choice.
Correct.
So, by being self-contained like that, you can have any number of nodes in the matrix, and the conditions on the prompt will tell the matrix when it's safe to use it or not.
Oh, sweet.
Right, and then the outcomes will change your character in a way that will flip different flags for various prereqs, which will change which nodes are available.
Right.
And that's how the matrix works. You don't actually have to map out a massive web.
Right, because the map itself is
because you encode instead
the
selection into the behavior of the conditions, right? Like the selection behavior is built into the prompt conditions and the settings on the character.
Yep, I see.
So each individual node, like you can be like, oh, dude, a great question for someone who's 25 would be this, and you can totally author that.
If
and
you're
all
level
of its
25
possible outcomes,
and you have these
and that's
presets,
one node.
here's the text, here's the question, and
here are
here's
the
the
choices
outputs.
you have, and here's what could happen if you do them. Right. And every level of those also have conditions themselves. So you could say, oh, I want a kidnapped by pirates node, right? And in the pirates node's choices could be 200 different things. All of them available or not, depending on your character at the time you get the node.
Right. So building a node is a discrete
I don't know why
piece.
this means summer fading in and out. That's what it means.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Gesticulation.
Just as this means each node is a
encapsulated,
discrete, encapsulated
thing, exactly.
event in the
once
life
you
of
put
the
it on
player
another,
character.
right?
Yeah, I understand. Pretty slick.
But yeah, so that's the idea, and that's why anyone can suggest a node, because all we have to do is go, oh, that's a good possibility, and it goes in, and that's fine. Which was part of the challenge of trying to get it into a book.
Correct.
Because the book, putting it in a book form fundamentally changes what it is, unless that book is a giant choose-your-own adventure.
Yeah,
You know
where
what I mean?
each page could be one
Yeah,
set,
like somewhere
either
in the
one
corner
cell
are the
or multiple
conditions of
cells,
whether
right?
you could use that chain. You know, it just wouldn't work.
It's unwieldy.
Right? And that's why I ultimately kind of gave up on the idea of trying to build the real origin matrix that way.
Yeah.
Right.
The app will have the real origin matrix. Something like central casting will be in the player's guide.
Yeah, I
Right.
understand.
So Sailkite asks, so if we're going to make a suggestion, would we just prop up a rough sketch, or would we include the multiplexed whole thing, including finger wavy
this is important.
motions for
You have this. They don't work
corporal
if you don't do
communication?
this.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
exactly. Zero gets it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Why can't you be like Zero, Sail? No, that sounds also like a lot of stuff. It makes me feel sort of meh about what I've done. Really, so what I've been done is mostly research, because I had that idea for that little, what did we call it, broglet, right? The little broglet that will be
Brog shot.
Yeah, brogshot. That's what it was.
It was
So
Brog shot. Yeah.
yeah, so I had the last time we did this, I told you guys I had an idea for a brog shot, and that for those to be done correctly, so we don't have gaping holes in our continuity. I won.
Gaping holes.
I was gonna say pants. Continuity is a much better choice.
I think so.
But I wanted to at least wait until we were done talking about the things that we talk about towards the end of these shows, so the cities and stuff like that. I wanted at least to get every single major culture talked about before I started bringing up that kind of window into the world.
That's smart.
And also I kind of wanted
It makes it smart.
I kind of wanted to wait in. Wow, really? I'm sorry.
It was what he said. He
Uh,
brought to mind a traumatic memory.
okay. But I wanted to wait until he was done with the map, or maybe not done so that you could see it, but done
Yeah,
enough
you
so
can
that
see
I
all of the
could-
major centers of
yeah, exactly. So
civilization, as well as the major swaths of
land
climates
and area.
and,
Yeah.
you know,
that's what I need.
biomes.
That's exactly what I
Do you
need,
have like mile
because
houses and stuff marked on the road?
I do.
he
Absolutely.
totally does.
I
That,
thought so.
that's
I was going to say so, but I didn't want to jump the gun and. Make,
I would actually
I
say
know they're
one
in
of
one
the
map, but I don't know if I didn't know if they were on that map.
They are,
One of
as well as
the
the trade
highest-
stops, all that stuff.
yeah, it's one of the greatest wonders of Blackwell, I believe, is our sort of their sort of it doesn't have a name yet, but it's sort of Prancing Pony-esque, not Prancing Pony, it's sort of a Pony Express-esque stops in between Skypass tides.
Oh! They have names. Actually, most of them have names.
No,
in
what
my-
is it? Does the road have a name itself? Does the sequence of stops have?
It's
the northern road.
it is the northern road.
Yeah.
It's the only northern road. So if I'm like, you take the north road to Sky Pass,
So-
you'll be like, which one? I'll be like, hard to miss.
Yeah.
You want to head. You want to
You
head
see those
down the
mountains?
road?
and
see
then
those
you're going to
mountains?
get to a road that goes north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Turn
the
right.
one.
That's the one you want.
So that road right there, the way that you've designed it is kind of not. I don't want to say it. Well, it is kind of a world wonder, right? Because it is.
it's a big ass chain of roads.
Well, not
Hell
is it a
yeah.
big ass chain of roads, but there's a stop every 2 miles there. Some
It's not 2 miles.
it was miles enough for
It's
a
about
horse.
20 miles.
It was how far you could run
It's
a horse
about
or something.
how far you could ride a caravan in a day.
There we go.
Without killing your animals.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody had to
There-
measure that. Somebody then had to place down and build the towers that are
For
there
them, it was probably
every
easier
single-
than for
This
me
was
because
not an uncommon practice in the Middle Ages.
for them they know how far they
Well,
go without
only
killing
towards
their
the
horses
late
because
Middle
their
Ages.
horses
During
would
the
die.
early Middle Ages, they used the Roman stops, and then once the Roman stops were deconstructed and used for housing, they didn't have this for a long. It's an important linchpin
It actually
in social development.
It
Integration.
actually depends on the country. Right? What a lot of countries did at that point was they warranted out maintenance and control of these houses to people.
Yeah.
They privatized it.
Okay,
So they still existed.
they
But
just
they just
wasn't.
became wayside inns instead of mile houses.
Hey,
Right.
Okay.
By the way, mile houses is the term that you're looking for.
Mile
Correct.
house.
It's called mile houses.
Mile houses. This is- Today I learned. But because your map has all of these places, I can sort of draw arbitrary pins and lines between like where different cultures may have developed a certain kind of pole arm with hooks on it instead of axe blades, so that nowadays, and when I say nowadays, the modern period of not Broggian history, but Blackwell history, where the Synod has sort of taken all of these cultures, and now I as somebody from Fall Creek don't really know the difference between, you know, a traditional Fall Creek Bardiche versus, you know, the Skypassian, you know, gigantic axe or whatever the fuck they call it, right? Now with your map, I as an archaeologist, this is who I'm playing in my Brog shot, right, can sort of draw up these lines and go, no, you see, the reason why this polearm has hooks here is because over 100 years before the Synod, they used to use those as tools that then dragged logs from
hi-ho world building.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've been working on this whole tangent gets me back to what I've been working on. And what I've been working on is research for not only the tone that I want to take in these little Brog shots and these mini stories, but also the areas in which would be most appropriate for the things that I want to make for each culture, so that you as lore master can agree with, yeah, absolutely, the people who would live by the river would have developed that, and this is how they would use and do that kind of thing. And of course, nowadays, people, unless you were highly educated, wouldn't really care or know that this hook weapon was made or for this kind of thing. But I at least wanted all of the tapestry to be there for you people to pick it clean and be like, look, there's history behind every bit of weaponry that the Theleston guys have developed.
As there should be. And the map is at a point where if you were to walk over to our dining room area and peer upon it, you can see all the things that you need for that.
Absolutely.
It's all represented.
Plan a campaign with that map.
You could.
So
you
mostly
probably want me to tell you what the names of the places and things are.
No, absolutely. So mostly what I've been focusing on is world building, but of course, as a webmaster, I have also been doing various research and taking some classes to learn how to shill better. I have new various resources for different weapon smiths, so I can show you guys various different kinds of weapons and info on the weapons, because instead of just posting up a picture of a pretty sword that's a rapier or a broadsword, I would rather be like, this broadsword weighs this much, is this long, is this heavy, and was from generally this area, so that you guys can have a little bit of the knowledge that I'm working with in order to design the weapons of Theleston, because we are going to have a basic arming sword, a wall hanger, a knight sword, a cutlass, right? But I kind of want to add a Theleston flair to those different weapons, so it's not Game of Thrones where you look at somebody and you're like, that guy right there, though he's Dornish, is very obviously using a fucking saber replica. Look at that. It has the gold little thing right there. I can come up with a historical book and go, this is the sword he's using. What the fuck? I still want the swords to be usable and realistic. I just want them to not be historical. Tool
overall, sword.
Absolutely.
I mean, there are lots of variants in tip and blade shape and all.
I don't want to make like the Dragon Slayer that's super big and curvy and weird. What I want to do is I want to make the
can't think of any cultures where they'd have that.
I'd want to make the Valeri saber, right, look different than. It's still a saber, in any way a saber is, but I want it to look different than what you would give a rich-looking dude in any fantasy essay. I don't want to give him a Persian saber. I want that saber to be Valeri. Like, that gold line there should rather be a golden V with maybe a rose, because the Valyrians love roses or grapevines or some other. I want to add history that works with the weapons the same way that in modern history you could go, that's a Celtic sword. Oh yeah, exactly. Totally, the same way in modern history, if you were a super nerd about weapons and shit like I am, you could go, oh, that's a Celtic sword, and you can tell that this is a Celtic sword versus a Roman sword because these branches off here on their handle look like trees, and
they do the large circle at the bottom, or the
exactly
depicts and their the people form, anthroform,
Yeah.
handles,
Yeah,
you know.
handles,
To anybody who would pick up a Roman seppa or what seppa, a Roman short sword, and then compare it to a Celtic short sword, the only difference you, as a layman, might see is the fact that the handles look different. And so you go,
Right.
oh, so culturally they designed a different handle, but it's
Romans
still
had
a handle.
less Keon going on.
Right,
if
exactly.
any.
But those cultural differences equate to fighting differences,
Correct.
also equate to design differences that
Absolutely.
are more subtle than just the fact that they used bronze here instead of gold, or that they chose to etch here instead of dig. It took time for an artist to make something that good, and so they all put reason into why they made it look that good.
Sure.
And I want that to be within the pictures
weapons
and the
and the
depictions of the
artwork
weapons.
to
I've
reflect
said
the
this more
history,
than
right.
once, right? And I really want it to reflect the history of Theleston.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work really hard on doing that.
Got it.
But yeah, I've been researching on shilling and doing better stuff, gathering resources so I can bring this sort of entertainment to you guys while also shilling our product. And also I'm doing research for these brog shots, which will be told in sort of story form from the perspective of an intellectual archaeologist. Maybe a Broggian, too. Like, I don't even know what this character is going to be like, because I still have to make a character and other shit. I'm working on the meat and potatoes
doing
of
the
this
research
lore.
first.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's what I'm doing.
That's cool stuff, though.
It's
Yeah,
all
that's
good
pretty
stuff.
cool stuff. It's
That's
stuff we
nothing to be ashamed of.
eventually need, but it's not the meat and potatoes that you guys have been working on.
I guess. I don't know. I
suppose.
still think that's going to be hella useful. We have to describe all the gear in the effing player's guide, for example.
Mm-hmm. I
got that
have a
list.
list of that too. I've been adding various different things to a list at home, but comparing those, I have a bunch of dupes, and right now, the real issue that I've been coming up with is I want maybe sort of price difference in the different tools that you can buy. So if I were to buy like camping supplies, right? If I were to buy poor camping supplies, I would think that the degradation on this thing should be monitored in some way, but that's like a whole nother system. And so like right now the list that is all the various items that would go into the player's guide is a rough list that I have ideas to present you all with.
Sure.
But it won't it can't be solidified until we actually get to that,
Cool
where
thing
all of
with
us
a
are doing
Pen and
stuff.
paper game is that some of that stuff you don't have to write rules for. You can sort of leave it on the players, and the narrators.
And
for
the
that matter,
narrator's
honor.
understanding
You
of-
know what I mean?
Like ammo for Dungeons
Like-
and Dragons.
spoiling food.
Yeah.
Or, the upkeep on your tent.
Right.
Right. Most players won't care about that.
Right.
Right. And so they're willing to eschew that level of realism.
Mm-hmm.
Some won't. And so every
You
party, every adventure, every story is going to be different. So it's kind of sometimes better to just sort of leave that.
Yeah. And let
Right.
them use that as
So when we have wear and tear, it'll be for things
Piece
like
of your-
armor and weapons and like things where that kind of focus is expected.
Yeah.
Right.
well, it has an impact on the potential efficacy. Whereas with your camping gear, your storyteller will, will
You haven't maintained your
use
gear
that
in a week,
as
so right.
as a way to drive drama or way to use. It's for pace or for excitement.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So
If
yeah,
it's super systemized, then it just becomes
Tedious.
yeah,
Yeah.
rule master.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah, it's a line we have to straddle, is how much we want people.
Yep.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we're actually already a little more sim heavy than I had originally intended.
Mhm.
The problem is translating the meows mechanics.
Correct.
We were an incredibly sim heavy meow.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Right.
So it's like, well, if we're gonna do farming, then shouldn't it feel kind of like farming did? And now we need to know,
If you're going to spend all
What
your
was the
time doing
weather
this, it needs to be
like?
rich
And,
and deep and
right.
actually matter.
And so things that, you're like, that'll be like 2 paragraphs, that'll be fine, end up being, 2 or 3 pages. The fucking corruption is a perfect example of that, right? It's like, in Revival, it's this big, huge system, right? But, to a player, it's just shit that happens the longer you fuck around with the planes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I want that feel in the game, but there's like no way, because you have to track levels,
interactions,
transformation,
Yep.
and corruption, and so now you've got these like
now you got to come up with a
pips
chart,
or
yep.
like, and I'm just
or a,
fuck,
a
I'm
number
BattleTech
line.
now. What the hell?
Oh yeah, you need a
Yeah, I
number
could
line,
do it.
right?
I could do it White Wolf style, right?
Mhm.
It's the beast.
How many pips do you have? Oh, you're all the way gone now.
Yeah.
So you can remove some pips and
But
come on
yeah,
back.
on the player's guide, that's actually what I'm working on right now, and I've been working on it for like a week and a half. But it was originally going to be like, I can bang this out in a night.
But yeah, you can get the overall idea across
And
in
I did.
a couple paragraphs.
Yeah, absolutely. But
But
now,
if you have to turn it into a mechanical
yeah.
system, it's going to take
Now I gotta
minutes.
go do all this other stuff, right?
It's kind of a
Indeed.
kind of a tangent, but it was a question I had and just remembered. Could you have a really really high corruption but like no madness? Or the
Yeah,
two...
that's possible. Though they go hand in hand as far as like the things that generate madness generally also will leave some mark of corruption on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's easier to cleanse the madness than the corruption, so it's actually very likely that you'll end up in a situation where you're more corrupt than mad.
Okay, all right, that's good. I was wondering how the relationship.
Yeah, the
between
trick
those
with
two work.
the trick with corruption and why you kind of don't want it is that if you hit the end, you lose control of that character, right? That's not you anymore.
Yeah.
Now you're an agent of whatever it was that corrupted you.
Right.
And it goes over to the
You've
narrator.
slipped too far.
Right. But it's really hard to undo that corruption, right? So it's the sword of Damocles over every mage's head, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the other way you can go too far, so to speak, as a mage is you can tank up too much mana
Then blow up.
and explode.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
Burn out yourself.
Manor.
Right. In a lot of ways. And then you kind of come back out the other side. Naked and Afraid. I think that's the name of that TV show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeesh.
Naked and dead.
So yeah, any more systems things, or should we move on to switching up the?
Well, there's some other small pieces of business,
Yeah.
For example, we were talking this morning about the silver candle.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a long, complicated build, but it's going to be a very cool thing when it's finished.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it is. I was listening to you guys talk
Comes
about it.
in two pieces, and they will interact with each other and be aware of each other's presence, etherically, as it were.
Yeah, pretty bitchin'. It's a good design.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to take a long time. The tech build is easy, and actually, I'll probably order the parts next week and have that running. But the actual prop is going to take a while, I think.
Yeah.
For example, I got to learn how to prep a model for the 3D printer so that it can be 3D printed.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. I just download already ready already.
There are plenty of tutorials out there, but I have never looked at them. Like, I've literally never done it. And I know you can't just throw a Maya model in the thing and expect it to work.
No, you
Right.
had to.
So,
You got to tweak.
Mhm.
right. And it's got to be like sliced and prepared and all this other shit. So I got to figure out how to do that. And that's just for, that piece.
Element of the
Right.
overall
Then there's also the
prop,
piece,
right?
the piece behind the shutter. And,
Bunch of cool things.
Yep, and that's just the 3D printed shit. I imagine the frame will probably be wood. So
Yeah.
I have to bust out the Dremel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or
Same
there's
thing.
some places
Actually,
where you can.
like I said, I was hoping I'd get your help with that because you
Yeah.
kind of have a shop where I don't.
I was
You
gonna
know?
say yeah, and I know some shortcuts around getting from point A to where you want to go without having to start from sheet.
Yeah, right.
there are hacks and workarounds and things you can do
You
to
went
get
to art school.
to get there more
For
quickly.
this kind of art.
Yes,
explicitly, actually.
I went to design school, son. And I
There's a
did.
difference.
And I did industrial
But
design.
that's definitely why I would want your help with that.
Yeah.
The other thing that we talked about was
Be sick to have a CNC mill. Then you just go, I want it to look like that.
Oh, I wish.
And here's some cherry wood. And it would just go.
Exactly. The other thing that we talked about was a story series.
Indeed.
So one of the open questions that sometimes gets asked that we kind of don't answer because we don't really want to talk about it too much is why are there no kings in Theleston?
Indeed.
So
There were.
there were, of course there were.
Of course there were.
But so we're finally getting ready to tell that story, and we're going to tell it actually in a sort of series of myths and legends called Theleston, Kings of Old. And so I don't know when the first one of those will come. Probably about a month from now, given our current story load.
But it will go into the story rotation.
But it'll go into the story rotation, and when they're done, we'll package
those
them
are earmarked for one
together as
ebook
one collection of
release,
stories. And they'll be kind of like Theleston's Arthurian legend, only Theleston's Arthurian legend.
Well, yeah.
Oh well, Arthurian legend doesn't end
It's
well.
why they're not so into crowns anymore. Why the people of the Synod are not actually motivated to set up kingdoms.
Right. Why nobody's carving their own little space out that way.
Yeah, the ascendant power in Greyshore and Blackwell Sound
should be an interesting
in general
series
is somewhat
too, because in
democratic.
some ways it'll be it'll hint
statist.
it'll leave you with
Rather,
hints as to like
Republic.
why the Synod happened. You know what I mean? Without actually explicitly going into that period of history.
Absolutely.
You'll excuse me, I have to go turn off one of my other clients who's contacted me on a day when I should not be being contacted.
But yeah, it's something interesting that
It comes up a lot.
I thought of is that because you didn't say that they sort of call themselves universally like the Synod or something like that, they act more like city-states. Would you say
A synod is
Yeah.
a gathering.
No, I know what the word means
It's
in
like
real
a party,
life.
though. So
But
while
if
they all
they're-
hung out at the one,
The Synod isn't an organization, even in Theleston, is what we're saying.
No,
Right.
I understand this.
Right on.
I mean, there have been points in history in real life where we've used words such as like gathering or synod to mean, oh, you mean that thing in which the kings came up together with like King John and then they signed the Magna Carta.
Yeah.
Here in America, we just call it the signing of the Magna Carta, but like in Britain, they call it literally the
Seth, that's
gathering
read that
upon
story.
the hill or some bullshit like that. They call it the gathering upon the hill.
Sure.
And they're like, that's when everybody gathered and they signed this
Yeah.
document so that asshole wouldn't be an asshole, and then a bunch of other stuff happened. But
He did take an
because they don't, the people you've said they don't recognize themselves, the separate cities, as a unified group under the name Synod or whatever they
Right.
would. They act like city-states would in
Yes.
Proto-Italy, right?
Yeah.
very much.
Okay.
Yes.
That
And
just
Proto
something I was
Greece as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, and Greece.
And Greece for a good long while.
Yeah.
Till the Romans. But yes, that's sort of exactly. And it is a point of history why they went
City-state instead of
well,
republic.
more a republic, more of a community,
Yeah.
community rule, rather than why a particular church
Yamo.
or group started.
Careful.
Yeah,
There's a reason that they went the way they went, rather than going power hungry, rather than going conquering army.
yeah, and so
you know.
should these stories also answer that question as well?
It is part and parcel.
Because I'm only wondering because city-state is an interesting way to go. Like you can go no kings and also have the Republic of Rome,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
But it's interesting that they didn't do
In
that,
a
and I always
nutshell-
wondered that as well. And these same stories will talk
one-
about it.
Yeah,
Don't
absolutely.
Don't be spoiler guy.
I'm not. I was gonna say
Hey,
one
don't be spoiler
one-
guy,
one
but I'm really
just-
interested.
element of all of this is to remember. It's
Yeah.
not spoiler at all. This is something everyone knows. The cores that the people sort of coalesced around were religions. And furthermore, they were cooperative religions. They were two different religions that already had established a peace.
Right.
Yeah,
Never were in conflict.
yeah.
So
absolutely.
rather than the civilization of Greyshore coming out of conflict,
Mhm.
the whole world is coming out of conflict. And here the grain that civilization coalesced around
Yeah.
was one of cooperation and enlightenment more than one of conquering.
Yeah, absolutely. At least
and also
here
with
on
a
this island.
healthy dose of fear of
The outside.
dominion
Yeah.
in general.
Oh, okay. At least on these islands.
Well, and the reasons why exist in these legends
Right.
that survived the fall, or maybe were legends of that fall, or legends of the fall.
Legend?
I've heard that before.
Maybe we could call the
Toblerone.
the book that.
That
you know,
candy is pretty terrible.
And get Brad Pitt in the movie adaptation, right?
maybe we could have him on the cover. We'd sell tons then. I hear he's cute.
Brad Pitt?
Isn't he cute?
Nope, I heard
No,
his
you want
schedule
Ryan
recently
Gosling
cleared
for
up, yeah.
cute. Brad Pitt is more handsome.
Goslings aren't pretty. Goslings are ugly.
I hear people
No, Ryan Gosling.
Juggling. Huh.
Why would you rye a gosling?
For the beer.
Make a whiskey out of it?
Yes.
So, gross.
Toblerones?
Tobleromans.
It's Toblerones.
Toblerones!
Took Europe by storm, don't you remember?
Yeah, that candy tastes terrible. Sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Toblerones. Chock full of the things Romans are full of.
Yep.
Lead?
That, amongst other things. Sure.
Okay, so
Probably
it's
wrapped
one
in
of
lead
those
foil.
candies.
Yeah.
Wrapped
It's
in
one of
lead
those
foil.
candies.
Nice.
Great. Okay, let's not eat those candies then.
So yeah, the whole point of bringing it up is that one of the things that we're going to start doing behind the scenes as we work on the world building a little bit is sort of backfill some of the past history that we had deliberately left vague. We probably will still leave it deliberately vague for you
In large
guys,
portions. I
but,
mean, this
we're
is what
gonna
adventures
start-
are made out of.
we're going to start nailing down some of the stuff that must have happened, but that wasn't like the stakes we already put in the ground as to the actual cataclysm, right? So now we're going to sort of fill in the path between them.
Absolutely.
And
Or
so
at
that's-
least the known stories.
That's going to result in a lot more like lost legends and stuff like that, which is, a big aspect of the game and the whole reason that we're doing it.
For sure.
It also allows us to have this whole other part of the game where after we release this part of the game, we can release another like prequel game that's also part of the game that like takes place in the older times instead of modern Theleston times. But
Hey man, some sort of DLC / expansion / source book were to spin out of that.
Box
I
sets,
don't-
man. Box
I
sets.
don't even
Uh-huh.
know.
it's
Um,
just an idea.
So you want to talk about some lore?
Oh yeah, it's
Lore.
time for lore.
Is it lore time, everybody? Lore time.
Lore time. So this week we're talking, as we have been for the past 4 weeks now.
Yeah, this will be
It's been 4.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about one of the major cities
Yeah, I think this is 4.
in the Blackwell. This time I have requested that we talk about Fall Creek, the city within the mountains, within the woods by a lake.
Yeah, right next to a lake, in fact.
Yeah, it drives down the
In
river.
fact, all around the lake and the river right there.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
Yeah. So
If I could bring I could see the map and be over there. I have a map over here.
he has to bring up his cheater screen.
There's my map. Well, no, I was going to tell you the name of the mountain.
Oh, okay.
The name of the damn mountain.
Damn mountain. It's a weird name.
Cloud Spire.
Oh.
It's Cloud Spite. It's not an R, it's a T. Cloud Spite is the name of the highest peak. And beneath the peak,
So like the formation of rocks pointed at the sky. That's like.
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And beneath the high peak down here, there's a very large lake, Crystal Lake, and then around the shores there.
It's called Crystal Lake.
No, a crystalline lake.
Okay. I was like,
It's not called Crystal Lake. There's no masked murderer.
Yeah, I'm like, really?
Yeah. In fact, the lake name is also over there on that map, and I'm not getting up again. It's also represented on the big map.
It is, though it's actually further west than I think most people realize.
Yeah, probably so.
Mm-hmm.
But so that lake sits up in that valley underneath the peak, around the shore of that, the eastern shore of that lake primarily. The western shore is rocks and mountain.
Has and is also the mouth
Is
of
the civilization
the
called-
source of one of the longest rivers in
Yeah.
The Blackwell.
Very long river.
Runs all the way
Flows
down
all the way down to Tide's End.
Yeah.
It might be the longest river in the Blackwell. I'm not sure.
It might be the longest river on Grey Shore.
Yeah, there might be one other one that I'm thinking of right now, but the river, the way
I'm
that
pretty sure
you
it's the longest one on Grey Shore.
emphasized it makes it look smaller. So
It's also worked. People use it to send logs.
Oh,
People
yeah.
fish it.
Yeah,
etc. Well, they don't
absolutely.
fish it where they send the logs.
Yeah, but it's straighter than
But
it used to be.
Straighter
and
than
it's-
it used
yeah,
to be.
right,
It has been
exactly.
widened all the
In
way
fact,
down to
The road still follows the old river's contours sometimes,
Correct,
right? So
correct.
sometimes it leaves the new river to go around an obstacle that's not there
not
anymore.
there anymore.
Right.
Absolutely.
So is
and
this
then,
river like?
And then at one of the smaller towns along the way, a place called Wide Forks, that's where the river itself goes back to its natural riverbed. There's a village there, and that's where they're pulling the
That's where the
logs out of the river. That's where the sawmills are.
Yeah.
Outside of Tide's End, because that's a messy, loud industry
course,
in
yeah.
general.
is that
but-
River's Head or whatever.
It's called Wide Forks.
But I mean, is that what on the old map
It
was?
says Riverside.
Yeah.
I think that exactly was. I don't know if
So
that's big enough. on
river
that. You can see some of the stuff
size
there.
wise, like width, is this like Mississippi, like the Nile, like
No.
how
Probably,
large is this river?
well, actually, certainly smaller than both the Mississippi and the Nile at their widest.
The Nile at
These
its
are both
widest,
lakes
I
that
think,
people purport to
is-
be rivers. Very long, snaking lakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's probably more like offhand rivers I've seen. The Columbia.
how many
perhaps.
barges wide would it take for me to build a barge bridge, Alexander style?
Tire style?
Yeah.
5 at the average.
That's actually pretty wide.
6.
It's smaller than
well,
it's
and I don't
smaller
mean
than
those.
both
I don't mean
of-
end to end. I mean fact to fact.
Yeah.
Wide to wide. Yeah.
Yeah, that's smaller than both the Nile and,
And the
It's
Mississippi.
still
yeah.
wider than I was expecting.
I'm saying this is a river you could swim,
it's wide
but
on the map, but the map, the scale on a map like that can be weird.
especially when
So-
you're drawing with a dip pen,
Right. So
Yeah,
I
some
wasn't
things
sure
are
if it really,
magnified.
5 across. That's
It's
that's
good size.
substantial,
It's a
you know?
substantial river.
how deep?
Different parts, different places, and they dredge it to make sure that the barges and such can
It's
make
wider,
its way.
it's wider than the Seine.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
no,
the Seine
it
actually
is
gets
wider
pretty
than the
narrow
Seine.
at some points.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Seine
And
actually gets really narrow at some point.
likewise, the Amstel, as it goes
Type-wise.
through Amsterdam, but that's because it was dammed however long ago.
Where do you think they dammed the Amstel? Where I wonder.
The Amsterdam?
Where's the dam on the Amstel? Where's the Amstel Dam?
Oh, that's right. I know where it is. It's in the place called the Dam Rock.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah,
Dam Square.
it's been a strange day.
Yeah, they kind of had to build the dam around the entire city. It's kind of below. There's this one time where he destroyed the dam and then flooded the entire city and then literally
Yeah.
said boats
And
on
then
his
sailed
land.
the Navy into it. Yeah,
Yeah. Amsterdam's
wasn't
weird.
wasn't just the city, by the way.
Yeah. No, it was his entire land.
Yeah.
The dam on the Amstel Light. It's
It's
actually on the Heineken because while they do make Amstel in Amsterdam, they make Heineken in Amsterdam. That's where the big green sign is. It's right there on the river on the Amstel. I know. I smoked a joint, walked by it, and went, I'm not supposed to smoke joints in public, but I can. In 1999, before we had legality here. It was my first taste.
of legal weed.
All right. So, another question that's kind of important because I kind of have an idea.
Did you
or
answer
at
how
least-
deep it was? Sorry.
I said varies, though they
Yeah.
do dredge it during, for large stretches of it are dredged, and
How
thus they're,
fast is it?
it's pretty fast. You wouldn't want to swim it in
Timmy
its
fell
deepest
in.
part. Yeah, if Timmy fell in to the deepest, most active part and didn't get brained by a barge or log,
Yeah,
Timmy would be swept.
that's what I was wondering.
Timmy was a good swimmer.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
He
No,
might
it's
get
fine.
his way to the edge and pull
It's actually
himself
good
out.
information.
But
yeah.
in general, where you've dredged, it's a
Yeah.
strong river that
It's
flows
deep,
to the
it's gonna
sea.
be
It's
fast
going to be
there,
fast,
Right.
right?
That's why I was wondering.
And they have tried to pull as many large obstructions from the body of the river itself as, they can
yeah.
off to the sides and out because
Because they
it
pull
causes
Well, and-
snags.
It's
And,
not
yeah.
like we're talking about a construction project that just happened either. This
No,
has
no,
been
this is
going
bits
on
by
for
bits.
generations.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So that's a pretty clean river at this point.
Right.
Mhm.
It was likely that they were logging that area before the fall.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Maybe not with the level
Yeah.
of intensity
It's not.
that is.
It's not the Santa Ana River in Orange County, California, but it's
Yeah.
probably not all that far.
off of from that, right? So
Right.
Santa Ana is a little wider and very seasonally, sometimes very shallow, right? Because
sure,
of the different.
but I meant sleep in concrete.
yeah.
Does this river flood down towards the end seasonally?
It would, but not anymore because
Not
now
anymore.
we've got canals running off of it.
Yeah.
Some of the canals will flood because
Okay.
they're backwaters, but that's
Yeah.
what they were That's what they were created.
That's
to
what
do.
they were made. Yeah. So, out of all of the cities,
And they can open every floodgate down the river, and then it's just going to dump right into the ocean.
okay, no, that's pretty cool. But
That probably pisses Tide's End off if that happens.
Well, it goes right through Tide's End.
Right. That's probably not cool.
yeah, but
the
out
canals
of,
rise. The canal.
You bastards.
out of the cities, right?
Open the midden.
I can picture a
You'd
sort
have
of
to, yeah.
aesthetic or design, right, for the city itself. Culturally, the Falkirk, I've sort of latched onto and I like the most, and I've been posting up things that are like, look, this is obviously this old Viking game's obviously a Falkirk game, right? Like I have a almost a vision of what the people look like.
Interesting.
But I don't have. I have literally no idea what their township, what their home looks like. I know that they build totems, but for like Tide's End, I can picture like bricks and rustic
stone
looking
and all
design
that, yeah.
and stone with not
Gutters
Fall
on the
Creek.
rivers, all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Or on the
With
rooftops.
with Crown's Rock is cheating because we designed that for the map, not for the map, for the Meow, but for the Sky Pass, right? I can envision giant gray stones, monoliths, huge religious works. In Valor, I can imagine something that looks like an Italian city-state at the Renaissance just blossoming into what it would eventually become.
Yeah, that's kind of the image in my head too.
Right, like I can put a picture to all of these city-states except for Fall Creek.
Ah.
What is Fall Creek like?
Okay, well, so to set the stage, when you expect a city and you think of a city as a walled, self-contained sort of thing, this is not Fall Creek.
Okay,
Fall Creek
I can understand.
kind of bubbles up out of the earth as you follow the river and the road north.
Coffee has betrayed
up,
me.
oh, sadness.
Likewise, I just finished my
Up
coffee.
the mountain. So as you're going up the mountain, you'll note, oh look, there's a guy over there who's got his own little shake house and his own little wooden fence, and he's got some goats or sheep perhaps. Right, just one dude. And then up a little ways over there, there's another person, and they've got their own little hold. And so you've got these little, and then they get closer together until you get to small sort of clusters. But there is no city center. There is this sort of neighborhood of longhouses, smaller houses that are made more in a modern sense.
So for
cabins and log cabins and such.
For people who are invested in revival, I imagine we're talking more like the farms on the west side of the city down to the docks.
Right.
At
Well,
Crown's Rock.
Yeah, and
Right.
do you remember your design for neighborhoods?
Yeah.
If a city were no city and were instead
Just neighborhoods.
a handful of neighborhoods spread out on the mountainside and around the lake, this is more Fall Creek.
That reminds me, barges on the lake, right?
Of course, yeah. I mean, more modern. The native Fall Creek people didn't build large barges on their lake. They used canoes.
Yeah. They didn't do the floating island thing.
They didn't they didn't have to. They had all the land they wanted, and they used the lake for fishing and sacred purposes.
That makes sense.
So they had smaller boats, coracles, skin boats, that sort of thing.
But there are houseboats out there.
Well, yeah, there are now, absolutely. And,
now that the Synod has brought
well, people. So this is also the mix you get. So the traditional homes used to be more like dormitories or group homes.
Yeah,
where
more like Viking longhouses
or like Native American longhouses in the Pacific Northwest.
Just something interesting I've
Which
always
are
wondered,
sort of
by the way,
built
Vikings and
into
Native
the earth.
Americans towards the eastern end,
Like a mound.
both had longhouses.
So they would use lumber to prop the earthen walls, and they would build into the earth and then mount the tops.
Yeah.
And so you have those still well maintained.
The closest thing you get to a hobbit
Because
hole
Fall
is here
Creek
in
wasn't
Fall Creek.
conquered.
Yeah.
It was just assimilated. And so you'll have those still at basically every major center, because that's what those were. Those were where everybody in that particular little group lived together.
Yeah.
But then you'll have, likewise, cabins of, log cabin design, more modern design.
Yeah,
well,
probably
modern, there's
by
a different
lumberjacks and
But by the loggers that have moved in, or people that have come from plains areas and have used the similar building methods to sort of bring together the rock and the dirt and the wood of the area to build their homes. So you'll see some variances.
Yeah, I see. What's the demographic breakdown?
Between native and new, or
Yeah, well, so you say it was assimilated.
Mhm.
Who was it assimilated by and how?
by handshake and trade.
And then who was it?
The people of Sky Pass knew the people of Fall Creek, knew the people of Tide's End. Shortly after the Synod, they went there to be like, this is what we're doing.
And I'm sure the
Are you
peoples
guys
of
still
Tide's
cool?
End and
Which is also what they did
Fall
in
Creek
Conquerai. Only in
traded
Conquerai, they
lumber.
found that no one was there, and we're like, well, found the city.
It seems to me there's no question that Fall Creek and Tide's End have had a partnership for
Ages.
Right?
Yeah.
And if there were any, war between them, a la Native American and colonials.
It was long ago.
It was long ago.
Yeah. So
and it fell out probably in similar ways. Only the colonials never had the English army.
So is there like, if I was say descendant,
I can make one sail from scratch.
It's true though. It's actually like legitimately true. If I was say descended from Masons from Sky Pass,
Right.
and I decided to come to Fall Creek, right, maybe to quarry the mountainside or something, right, and I ended up putting roots into the community, could I call myself Falkirk? Or would that be like, am I like, is that Howley Gauche?
That's Howley Gauche.
Yeah.
it's come on, man.
So tell me about
we
the
appreciate that you come and celebrate with us. The gods look favorably on you.
This leads into the question I just wrote down. You should speak of the Falkirk because since they were assimilated, right? If any sort
they
of
weren't
cultural...
assimilated as though they were subjugated.
No, absolutely.
Their culture is strong.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, so that I'm sure I'm up to date. But when you say assimilated, you mean people started showing up, businesses started to grow, cultures started to mix. It wasn't like they were like, hey, we're gonna go take the Falkirk land.
No, it's that lake's gorgeous, and I like this person, so I'm gonna go hang out with this dude.
It was all very simple.
No concerted effort. No campaign.
No, nothing like that.
If a cultural discourse were to happen between like two individuals at a drinking game or something,
sort of, yeah.
Towards a drinking game or something like that, because the Falkirk culture is so tainted is the wrong word. So really is strong and less mixed and metropolitan than the other cultures. If a cultural discourse were to happen, or would a Falkirk would a Falkirk say anything about how they were Falkirk and everybody else was doing something like? Would this ever happen? Are the Falkirk proud that their culture is strongly Falkirk while everybody else seems to be mixed and... do they take
certainly
pride in
there
this?
are some that take pride in their culture. Absolutely.
Is it a strand in their culture that is marketable? Yeah. Is something that people are like... You should watch out when saying these certain things when around somebody who's Falkirk because
you don't
they
want to
will get
offend.
haughty. Yeah.
Or you don't want to...
Are they like dwarves? How about that?
They're not
When I say dwarves, not the fantasy dwarves, I mean when somebody talks ill against a dwarf who is usually...
They're sort of like mountain men, but not like in the mountain, more like on the mountain.
Yeah. But this ties into what he was saying is like, talk about who are the Falkirk.
The Falkirk are the people that were born there. They're the people of the mountain and of the wood.
Yeah. What did they do?
What are their life ways?
Yeah. Nowadays, they log, or they brew, or they carve, or they do woodworking.
They also have a different...
So what's the carving all about?
Mostly totemic spirits, animals, representations of the Hammer of Winter.
You you just brought up what I was going to say. That's why I stopped. They have a different pantheon than the other pantheon. Oh, it's... Wow, something in my throat. It's not exactly correct to say it's a different pantheon because it's more like if I was
saying
a Greek,
these could be reflections.
Not reflections are even related because if I was a Greek who worshipped Kronos,
right,
and all of the titans and gods before the pantheon everybody thinks is a Hellenic pantheon, right? Technically, those guys are related. Zeus is related to Kronos, literally by father and son.
Sure.
But the Hellenic cultures aren't known for worshipping Kronos and for worshipping the guy who made humans. What's his name? The guy who has his liver fucking eaten because fucking
Prometheus.
Zeus is. Yeah, they don't worship Prometheus. Those were cults. Those aren't part of
I see what you mean.
Hellenistic tradition.
Well, and there are also Dianics, and then there were also Apollo.
Well, Apollo, yeah.
Apollonius.
Yeah, Apollos are still those are all Hellenic beliefs, right?
They're in Purple Rain, right?
Right, Apollonians.
But
I thought they rode wild on the plains.
Yeah, but they're related, but they're totally different. That it's not Nodens and Anima. It's
Demo and
Demo
Hylity.
and Hylity, and there's one other
Cirith.
Cirith. Yeah.
So Deno and Hylity could be seen as derivative or reflections, or could be seen as their own thing.
Yeah.
If they were reflections, Hylity would be Dema.
Okay.
Because they occupy similar places.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
like this culture they have different gods.
they absolutely have different gods.
These gods also accept.
They're compatible, thankfully.
Yeah, absolutely. There seems
So
like
does
there's a
that
lot
mean
of room
the
for
Falkirk
Falkirk pride.
Or not part of the sign-on?
No, they were represented at the Synod. So the Synod happened when the Broganes went. I think we can make. I think we can make a. What's the word I'm looking for? A journey. I think we can make a campaign, and we can go to these places where we
mission?
knew. Yes, in a
Yeah.
way, a mission. We can leave Sky Pass, and we can go to Fall Creek, and we can go to Tide's End, and maybe we can make it clear out to Congarai, and we can see if these places have fallen, or if they're still, holding on as we are.
Mhm.
And they went to each place, and they found people there, and we're like, here's what we're doing. Will you come? And they were like, yeah. And so then everybody got back together at Sky Pass. The Synod happened. The new reckoning began.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was no one at Congarai. Valor didn't exist yet. Neither did Crown's Rock.
Mm-hmm. Those are new places, or Havensport, for that matter. Oh, totally divergent question. Which came first, Havenports or Crown's Rock?
Crown's Rock, Havensport, probably pretty close to one another because they're
Yeah.
they're right across the channel.
Just an interesting bit of fact lore. I was just wondering because they're right across.
It's a trick question.
Is it?
Hmm?
I didn't
What?
realize I was
I'm
trying to
sorry.
trick him.
What?
Okay, back to Fall Creek.
The answer depends, that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Back to Fall Creek. So
Sure.
they have different gods,
Sure.
the tomatic beliefs,
Totemic.
like the totemic spiritual
Animist.
animist belief, which means so that's animist, not animist.
Correct.
Yeah. So that means that they're also spirit. Oh, well, everybody seems to
Incredibly, one could
revere
argue.
spirits, but
Correct.
what's the difference between why everybody seems to revere spirits on Theleston? What makes these
Different kind.
people? Yeah, they recognize every rock tree and the Pocahontas X.
Not
Where
Pocahontas.
people
It's Shinto.
Oh, more Shinto-esque. Okay.
But
Actually, there are a lot of parallels onto souls.
Lifeways be Lifeways, yo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to jump into a comparative religion study at the moment. But
No.
That's why I shortcutted it as I did.
Both thought there
There
were
is
spirits in rice.
there is a
Corn.
worthy hypothesis in the chain that you are following.
Okay.
Yeah. Summed up by Lifeways be Lifeways, yo.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I want to know some of the differences between how a Felkirk goes about being religious and a Nodensian goes about being religious.
That's pretty easy, actually. To a Nodensian,
Yeah.
religion is here in my hand. It is a thing I go to. It's a thing I use.
Yeah,
Right?
it
I
has
talk to the god via the priest and via
it's
the altar.
The Hermetic?
Well, hermetic just means closed, secret.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought it
Um,
meant rule-based.
right.
So it's not exactly hermetic.
Yeah,
But it's a tool. It's got rules. I do these things. I talk to God.
okay.
The Felkirk beliefs are far more I am, and there is the work of the god, and I am the work of a god. Together, this is all the works of the gods.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have far more of maybe I'm here because I'm supposed to be sort of belief. Far more of things occur in the universe because of a greater design.
Cog in the machine, sort of.
Right, and
Yeah.
that you are of the machine. You are, you too are a part. And then there's the bear, and the bear is also a being, seen as Dema's chosen, just as you are of Dema's
What's their
chosen.
take on the fall?
Weird, bad things happened. The world got dark. Something was poisoning the
Is the
the
plan
world.
fucked up? Is that part of
Something
the
had
plan?
intervened. Absolutely.
Changed the plan.
Interesting. I would imagine that might change your cosmology if you were an animist.
Well, yeah, because it came from outside, but it's obviously here
Right. Well,
So-
it's obviously some form of spirit of its own.
of its own.
You know.
Yeah, but it's a corrupting spirit that causes things to break.
Yeah,
and
would
fall
it be
apart.
the closest
If
thing
you
that they
didn't
might
have
call
that
the demons?
concept already, that would be
new
transformative,
and transformative to your
Oh
culture.
wow!
Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't have had demons beforehand, or well, maybe they might have
They
the
might have had
monsters that you
angry
stay
spirits,
away.
but they might not have had. This force exists solely for the purpose of evil.
Holy
evil,
shit!
right?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Well, and if you consider Deno, their god, right,
Yeah.
is the Hammer of Winter. He's not good. He's
Neutral.
winter. Winter
Yeah.
is hard.
Yeah.
You know, he's that. Whereas their goddess is the wild blooming of growth. Right?
Yeah.
So not
Daughter of the wild.
necessarily good.
Not good. She's also brambles, but she's also the fruit on the brambles.
Right.
She's the fecundity that gives you life to make it through the dark winters.
So, I know of a few other gods, and I'm not going to go put them in by name.
You probably shouldn't
Right.
because I haven't revealed every god to the
No,
to
exactly.
the people watching.
But there are elder gods, which means that they must have been worshipped by people from the planet Theleston.
Not true. That's a fallacious leap.
No,
Yeah,
elder
they could
gods
just
are the
exist and
gods
not-
of
not
the...
be
The
worshipped.
gods are real. They don't have to be worshipped. The gods are.
Right.
Didn't he say that their powers is...
Well, thank
Thank
you for
you.
the follow.
Thank you for the follow.
That's awesome, man.
Welcome.
Yeah, the gods just are.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they simply exist. And
Okay,
the elder gods are the
then
ones
it's
that
better
came,
that-
with
yeah.
came with the
Yeah,
planet.
came with the
There
planet.
are some modern, let's call them natural philosophers,
Yeah.
who
Certainly.
have hypothesized that it's the other way around, but no one knows for sure. And the legends all have the gods; they were always there.
Right.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, I get that. I meant, so these other gods, right? Their influence is there enough to have certain names for some people, right? Where did these guys come from? Who, oh wait, the gods are just things. They're more like titans. Their power doesn't directly derive from people worshipping them. You just said
correct,
that.
yep.
Yeah, okay. So they just act.
Demons are simply misunderstood.
Okay.
The
also-
demons come from the
It's
outside.
also worth noting that I
Because-
might think something is bad that somebody else thinks is not bad.
That's true.
Well, yeah, but my question then is, why is that god even interacting on an island in which nobody is recognizing him?
Well,
For her.
It?
yeah, it
is
is
better.
actually a
Yeah,
better
I was
description.
gonna
than
say
any
it's always
sentence, right?
Even on those female
It
feminine
has an
gods.
agenda. of
That's
its
what they
own,
identify as.
whatever it may be,
Yeah.
right? And we are very likely never to understand it completely.
Right. You're,
Okay.
Yeah. You're immortal. They're not.
Oh, I'm immortal. They're not.
Amortal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amortal.
Not
Cosmic,
him.
cosmic insignificance is an aspect of the IP.
Correct.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's weird tales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mortality.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Okay. I was just wondering because there are other gods
So
that I
their
know
carvings
of.
take the forms
who-
of animals, representations
Yeah.
of animal people.
Actually,
Yeah.
we kind of diverted off a tangent, but I was going to ask. Generally speaking, animist societies observe their own sort of calendars and rituals, sort of based on the, let's clinically call it, microclimate of their culture.
Right.
Right? Is that true for the Falkirk as well?
Yes. Yeah.
So they probably have observances that outside of Fall Creek would seem
Don't really make sense.
odd or quaint, maybe even.
Yeah.
Oh, they have that festival every Old Spring or whatever. right?
Absolutely. Yes. And their festivals are generally things like welcoming the spring, closing the harvest, burning all the chaff from the field so that you can till that back under.
Are there any local spirits that they have to keep in check?
So
So thinking back to a place at the table
yeah,
in Valor,
right.
We know that in the mountains there's that thing.
there's
whatever
that something
is.
that you
Yeah,
need to feed.
Right.
Um,
If that had happened in Falkirk, I imagine they would think it was some sort of powerful
they would
spirit.
give it a name and a place,
Right.
and there
Yeah.
are names and places
Is there a
all
forest
over
spirit?
the mountain where things
But when
have happened in history, where there are stories about, or where
Is there a
Where people don't
Mononoke-esque
go.
forest spirit?
I bet you there are really cool ghost stories in Falkirk.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
fucking really cool ghost stories.
there isn't a single Mononoke-esque giant forest spirit.
Yeah, well, I did.
But
I
the
didn't mean
idea
look-wise,
of,
but I
of
meant
the
like king of
and
the
the
forest.
name escapes me right now.
God of the forest or whatever.
The little dudes,
Brownies.
the little they're not brownies. They
Yeah. Coco.
Orokodama.
oh
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
Kodama. Thank you. But the Kodamas
Yeah.
totally
Kodama.
every freaking rock and bush. The deeper you get,
Yeah. The Kodama if I understand Shinto tradition, right, and that is a very hard thing to do. Any of you out there who are going to claim they know about Shinto tradition. Shinto tradition in particular is really hard just to, like, nail down.
It's Kodamas. Yes, he's zero nailed it.
Because there isn't actually a singular.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about 15,000 overlapping life ways.
Kodama are children spirits of the tree.
Yeah, individually.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
but then there are also ones for stones, and there are also ones for waterfalls, and
Yes.
particular wells, and particular pools, and this glen, and that meadow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, and
Hundreds
it's
of them.
more like that.
Yeah, but,
Okay.
fuck that meadow, really.
Really. There's a bear in it. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's no, like, mountain god or anything like that? No high spirit?
Not a singular one other than Deno and
Yeah.
Hylity.
Yeah. Okay.
So, to the non-Felkirk, are these like quaint superstitions, or have they kind of bought in, or
Well,
like
so the Brogine
which
know
way is
better.
this?
I would imagine
increases
yes or
going?
no.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
The Brogine know better. The Nodensian are of the idea that Dema is actually a reflection of Hylity, or Hylity is a reflection of Dema, and that anime and Nodens are all of these things, of
Right.
course,
Yeah.
right? And this
Different
is,
aspects
they
of
just
the gods,
interpret
yeah,
them
exactly,
differently.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they feel.
Okay.
And whereas the
That would
Felkirk
piss
are
So
like,
they don't. Well, but that
the
would.
Felkirk are like, dude, I know my gods are real.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that would
fuck
imply
yeah.
that they don't discount that the things that the Felkirk see are happening. They just attribute them to
Hard
a
to.
different, ascribe them to a different source.
Absolutely. Well, and hard to. I mean, in general, in Theleston, when you see magic happen, you see magic happen, and yeah, it warps your little mortal brain because it wasn't supposed to happen.
Right.
But you saw it, and divine stuff is, it does happen. They've seen it. They have record. So they have to at least acknowledge that these forces are there.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the? If I was a tourist, not that such a thing really exists.
Sure.
But if I were a tourist
Yeah, we've got some
Really,
traveling
really rich
people.
merchant
And
sons
I
who
was
want to go
going
see
to-
something.
to Fall Creek,
Mm-hmm.
is there particular sites I would be like, oh, I've got to go see the?
Well, the
you
lake.
know,
Absolutely,
course,
the lake.
sure.
Yeah.
And you'd want to go for festivals.
And the falls, I'd imagine you probably want to see those.
Yeah, on the creek.
Yeah, you would see them on the way up.
On the way up.
I would imagine.
Many. Except for the route for the logs,
Right.
where there are none.
But that's on purpose, in the sense that that's on purpose.
Yeah, they smoothed all that crap out.
Right.
Yeah.
For certain. So you'd want to see the falls below the city. You'd want to see the lake itself. You'd want to go during festivals because that's when they decorate the spaces
Yeah, I can
between
see
their
paper lanterns
with the
and
paper lanterns
music
and stuff,
and
and
booze.
Games and booze.
People beating the shit out of each
Right.
other while they're drunk.
they do
and-
the log boxing.
I'm
They
sorry, I
do
mean
the-
playing games, right?
right. They do the
Log bows.
they do what we call Hammerschlagen. They
Yeah.
do all of these things that Verde has found because those are all they're certainly raucous and fun, and the sort of thing you would do if you were a bear of a man or a woman, and that's just what you do in these festivals. It's all good fun. Or they have their harvest festival usually is more about. I mean, they're all about getting drunk and doing the thing, but shuffling large parcels or doing your caber throw or that sort of loggers games.
Yeah.
So you would want to go to see those
Like a
events.
Highlands festival, or
There's probably
And likewise,
some,
they're totems and things, but that's really, I mean, you would want to see them either for a religious reason or they would all be the same to you. More
that's
or less.
kind of what I was
Yeah.
getting at. Are there like shrines or anything that are like, oh, you've got to go see the?
Yeah, well, so religion is sort of downplayed because it's just what you do in your life. So,
Sure,
So
but if
they
I was
don't have a
going to
temple like
Japan-
the Viking.
oh, dude, they've got a monstrous freaking Buddha. I've seen it.
Well, that's not even what I mean. I mean, not being a practitioner of any of the Shinto beliefs. There are still like a dozen Shinto shrines on my list of things I want to see.
Things you really want to see. That's true.
So
Right.
they don't
That's true.
like the Vikings had certain locations. The one that everybody thinks of, the Golden Longhouse with the statue of Tyr, fucking Thor, Nodens,
I know
Freya.
what you mean.
Yeah, the Falkirk don't have a building like that?
No, they do most of their observations in meadows, so you might want to go see a
Okay.
meadow. But
So
in the meantime, it's just
their
a meadow,
holy sites
you
are
know?
more like Celtic holy sites,
yes.
which were out in the
Standing
open,
stones,
that were made separate
meadows.
from places, but were also integrated
Incorporated.
with the space.
Right.
Absolutely, I
So
understand.
you might want to see those, but they would be natural places of natural beauty.
Did they have
Or
a?
totems, or...
Yeah, you see, that's what I'm. That's yeah. I don't think they would be entirely unspoiled.
No, there were standing stones, totems. You might have the meadow with the totems all around it,
Sure, I get what you're saying.
but no monstrous construction.
Yeah.
You know, no great longhouse for holy purposes.
Yeah, they.
Yeah, no
So
church,
they
no
probably have
church.
meadows for different things or
why I
festivals or
said
places. So
shrine.
this might be
Yeah.
a festival meadow, while this meadow where the big tree is where all the minstrels go, and you go there to have open discussion and no hateful talk or someplace like that. And that's how the Falkirk kind of works.
That's the meadow they tie all the ribbons to the tree and dance around.
Only during the festival or
Sail-
whenever
sail
there's
is a
a
couple
big
pretty
raucous
good
party
questions.
happen.
All right.
So Sail asks, what's the climate like in Fall Creek? Either on average or
Longitudinally, it's Pacific Northwest. They're up above the plane that they're on. So longitudinally, on the map that you look at, the plains around them are warm, temperate, but they are up on the
jet
mountain.
stream
So
run,
they
like,
have
right through them.
jet streams move. They have a
Also, no way in hell.
that's
It's
at
on the wrong part of the
southern
globe. That's
southern
not
hemisphere
possible.
too, right? Would be going the other direction, I think.
No, you said that it was running up this way.
I don't even know about jet streams right now.
No,
Twice.
not possible.
However, they are on the mountain, so they have a microclimate, being that they sit right there next to the lake, way up in the mountains, where it's cold even in the summertime. There's snow on the mountain peak all year round. So High Sierra in the Sierra Nevada, Pacific Northwest, Oregon coast, that sort of climate overall.
Are they? I imagine. Are they getting rain that, like they probably get more rain?
Yes.
because it gets squeezed out over the mountain.
Right
basically,
above
right?
them.
Yeah,
And then falls into the lake all around them.
yeah. So it's probably pretty wet even when it's sunny.
Yeah, again,
Humid, you know.
in the mountains of Northern California and Southern Oregon and even up into Washington are a good model,
I get it.
especially depending on where you are on the rock itself, on the mountain itself. Sail. Well, and what's interesting about Seattle as an example is they've got Rainier, and Cloud Spite is much like Rainier in that if you were far away looking across the continent, you would see Cloud Spite there, and you would know Fall Creek's on that way up there, But much like Rainier, Cloud Spite stands almost by itself in a very small little cluster.
Yeah.
Not a part of the big.
It's not a huge range.
Right, it's not a part of some other large range. And kind of like Pikes Peak, which stands alone as well for different reasons.
Sale's other question was, are there secular attractions in Fall Creek outside of economic incentives for going there?
Offhand, just the festivals, or a desire to go find folk art, good woodworking. So, I mean, if you like the mountains and you'd like to take a week on the lake and go fishing, perhaps.
What do they eat?
Fish, berries, animal meats like deer and game.
Not really a farmer community.
Not really a farming community. They do tend berry bushes that they know are the same berry bush every year, but it's not like a berry farm. You would have to clear away a bunch of stuff and then foster the growth of these bushes in large lines.
They probably
it's just not their tribal
trees.
way.
Yeah.
And then as they grew, they
Orchards.
didn't ever have
Yeah.
a need
Are
to.
there- Like, there
It's
can't
well,
be-
it's
there can't be a lot
evergreen,
of people
however.
there
Right, it's
then,
evergreen.
right?
Yeah, they're not a massive community by any stretch. They never really had been. Decent size, but they spread out around the lake and then down the mountain a little ways. And then that's pretty much it. And their way of life doesn't translate to the open plain.
So we know from one of the old revival blogs that there are old shrines and temples sort of in the forest below Fall Creek,
I do know that.
which implies a sort of looking for the right word, a wilder time maybe. That's probably not the right word. That's not really what I mean.
What do you mean?
Perhaps a more gregarious spreading of the Falkirk?
Ah. Yes, it does imply that.
Right. So is there more evidence of the Falkirk further south, or is it just in that little forest there?
So,
Like,
it would be telling, but there are
was
some...
there a time when they ranged? Because now it doesn't seem like they do.
There's
they also
another
have
mountain
range?
range. If you look at Grey Shore, Grey Shore does this.
Right.
Falkirk's down here in the corner.
Don't they herd reindeer too?
And then there's a flat spot here with a swamp in it
We did talk
before
about
the
that.
river, right? So you have the mountain, you have swamps, you have not the river, the ocean,
Yeah.
and then this kind of plainsy area, and then another mountain range over here. There is evidence in the western side of this mountain range that a similar civilization did have some time there, roots there.
Interesting.
Also,
But we don't have any cities
Connection.
there now or connections
Right. I get it.
yeah.
now. Though no one lives in those mountains anymore,
Right.
as we know right now. There's a lot of ruin down there, though.
I wonder what the story about that is.
There's even a ruined Nodensian church. The people who came to Crown's Rock came from a Nodensian abbey down there in those mountains. It's in one of the stories.
That's right. I remember.
Yeah.
It's in the story of the Older Crown.
Yeah. On their food situation, didn't you also say that they range?
They use reindeer's blue milk.
Well, yeah, that they raised reindeer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that
They
they
do.
have blue milk.
I wouldn't say, what was the word, ranch? I don't know, because ranching reindeer is...
That's not how they did it back in the past either. It was more like...
You may keep some reindeer.
Yeah,
2 or 3.
yeah.
But you don't keep a herd of reindeer, those amount of reindeer.
No, but you might pay attention to where the herd
You absolutely pay
lives there.
attention to where the herd
Yeah,
lives,
exactly.
so that you can cull your 1 or 2, because blue milk.
Yeah.
And caribou.
Reindeer Ranch. The blue dressing. That's awesome. That's awesome.
It would be.
Huh. That's an interesting question, now.
Thousand Stone and Gems. Trapped gas. So we don't know about trapped gas yet. Though certainly metal stones and I mean gems when I say stones. Certainly metals, gems, that sort of stuff. It is a mineable mountain.
Any
The people
sacred
of
caves?
Falkirk don't really mine. That's not a part of their being. They used rock from the surface, but they didn't delve.
Yeah, it's funny. In my head, I didn't see them as metal users particularly.
That's not really what they use. They use
Yeah.
horn,
That-
antler,
That
wood.
comes with the logging more than it does. Yeah.
Yeah, they do use metal with the logging.
Yeah.
They just do. But
I've actually
But I feel like that would be a
already...
more modern change to the
That's
lifestyle.
yeah.
Yeah.
exactly
I've
that.
actually
And that's
already
the mining is
incorporated
a
that
modern
idea
thing
into
as
my
well.
research
Right.
on the various different older weapons
And you were kind of talking about that last week, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. No, they
They're
don't have lightning
very
rods in their own.
utilitarian about their
Though
metal.
they do understand that lightning happens and hits high things. They never built lightning rods that people live
Well,
low enough amongst
I was
the
going to say,
canopy.
if they're low amongst the trees, they might not even consider the need.
Right.
But
For a person to be struck is
they're
remarkable. You'd have to be above the tree line, and they live within the trees.
Yeah, or in a meadow or something.
Yeah.
but in the
Which is
research...
the spirit of the meadow.
I was
Told
going to
you.
say, exactly.
I told you that meadow
Or-
was not to be trusted.
Don't go to the
or it's the
fucking
hammer
meadow.
of winter, or it's whatever. Yeah, they would be seen as something spectacular.
But yeah, in the research that I was telling you about, the Falkirk are very frugal, or at least the old Falkirk were very frugal with their metal, using it mostly for tools and for the effective parts of their weapons, even to
Yeah,
the point
strikers.
where the nails that they used, I'm deciding
Dowels.
here,
Oh, nails
aren't
are-
actually metal nails.
Yeah, nails. They would
They're
use
made
nails.
of
They would
bones.
use. They would use dowel.
Yeah.
They would just cut it. That's how you do that.
No, I'm
sometimes.
talking about things
Also
for like
dovetailing.
pins in
Yeah, or
pins in
joints
in a dagger or something
Yeah.
that an old Fall Creek would make. Was probably not going to use a metal pen.
It might not know.
It's most likely it's going to use a bone pen or
Certainly.
something else, because bone is the only thing that you could carve that is hard enough to act as a pin would act in a
Knife
metal.
doesn't need to be made out of metal either.
Oh, the knife? No, the
Yeah,
only
could be
reason
could be
why.
napped.
bone. Yeah.
Oh
be
no,
made
the
out
only
of
reason
bone.
why the knife.
Antler.
Well, if you're reading, if you've read the Matchmaker in Kongarai and you have in mind a current Fell Creek knife that that's there, that knife is made out of metal and is Falkirk because it's based off of an old Falkirk tapping tool
I
for
remember.
making sap.
Yep.
And it's rumored that if you're strong enough, that you could take this knife and that the it's not the rigidity, but that the metal and the wood and bone construction is also perfectly made that you could strike hard enough once with a hammer and in a single strike bear the whole of the blade into a trunk of a tree or the skull of a bear or of an Aldebor.
I recognize a myth when I hear one.
Yeah.
It might not be.
Who's holding the bear still?
I know.
No, with his hand, you could, with your hand, totally. If you're strong enough, you could totally pierce a bear skull.
Totally, Neuro.
But also the old, like I have no reason why Falkirk might have fought before, but the armor that the archaeologist has found in my research and the armor that I've been designing also doesn't incorporate a lot of metal. It's more wood, paint, and leather. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Absolutely. The most, like, the tool that they had that used the most metal, that is also by part the rarest thing that, the rarest find to an archaeologist, is an early example of a buckler, where this Falkirk weapon, and it is a weapon because the archaeologist could find no tool use for it, but it is a small buckler, only about double-sized a person's hand, right? With a knife that goes down either this way or forward, used for stabbing, chopping, and other very short, in-close combat kind of things. And what...
Bear wrestling.
Yeah,
Bear
exactly.
wrestling.
What the archaeologists believe...
Right.
The archaeologists believe that the Falkirks, when they did battle, were masters of guerrilla warfare. But there are no... examples of this being true, so it's all...
They didn't fight anybody.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Don't
all
have
speculation.
any histories of that. Also, they don't keep written history, so...
This is an archaeologist,
I
if
know.
you listened,
I heard.
who took this and is suggested that this might be the case.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
It would have to be that way.
Well, that's how all the stories work in Theleston.
You know, sometimes you will find written words that say, this is what happened.
Actually, often you'll find written words.
Oh, yeah, but we all know how truthful those written words could absolutely be.
Sure, they're as reliable as their authors.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If
Like
I
all
didn't
history.
write it, I don't trust it.
That's all history.
Like all history.
If I wasn't there, I don't trust it. Sure, they had no one to fight, absolutely. But actually, this...
Let's see.
you bring
Yeah,
up an
Exactly. Neuro gets it.
You bring up an interesting...
Is that actually an ancient Tide's End weapon?
Right. Did somebody from Tide's End come up there and try to mix it up? And then stuff happened, and then it got lost?
So those are interesting things that maybe I thought about putting in the openness of his statement. Yeah?
Mhm.
Yeah. No, but you totally get it, Legendary. Your statement, though, is you sort of said something that brings about new questions. I'm trying to grab hold of what...
It's revealed further mystery.
Yeah, they have no written word.
No.
No runes, no...
Spoken history.
Spoken history, so
Or do
would
they?
I imagine that within their culture there are I won't say class because they don't seem to see class that way. They're more like a tribe where they're like, this is your job and this is what you do in the community.
This is
They're,
what needs doing,
yeah.
so this is what we're doing.
they're storytellers?
Right. Absolutely.
Absolutely, there's a storyteller who keeps the history, storytellers for entertainment, and they hold prominence in their community.
Storytellers that keep the histories.
Yeah, they
And
keep
they tell the
telling-
histories at the
Festival.
festivals.
Not just that's because that's their job. They don't take care of children and also tell the stories in order to educate
They
children.
probably do stuff around the town, whatever.
Yeah.
But their primary purpose
Is storytelling.
keep the story. Tell the story at the festivals.
So this leads into
they
an
eventually will have to teach the stories to another person so
Of
that
course.
that person can take over where they
absolutely,
leave
of
off
course,
and then-
this is there. So this brings up another question. Well, actually, two really good questions.
Yeah.
One is that introduction to writing. How has that gone so far within the Synod? Because they had to have been introduced to the
Synod
common.
rites.
Yeah, the Synod rights. So how did that? Is it going well? Has it gone well?
Some learn to write.
Some learn to write. Are
And
they
when
mostly
they learn
the
to write,
loggers?
they learn to write in Brogine.
Yeah, that's not what I meant.
Brogo.
That's not
or
what I
they
mean.
learn
How is that translated?
or they learn
Is this is
whatever
this
they're using in Tide's End for the things that they're working with.
It's not what I mean.
Probably Brogo.
I mean, like in China, right? How that didn't translate well for some people and their dialects and their language. How has this gone for the people?
The people that need to learn to read and write, learn to read and write. And the ones that don't.
What's the culture behind that group of people like?
It's the merchants, it's the loggers, it's the
That's not what I mean. I mean, how did that interact with their culture?
They learned to write, but they
Yes.
did not
Yes.
assimilate writing
For
into
example,
the Falkirk way
I think
of
I
life.
understand what you're asking. So, for example, does the storyteller write down the story now?
None of the storytellers have learned to write yet. But if one did, yeah,
So
sure.
so
And then you would have a
writing
Brogine
culturally has
translation of
not
the story.
taken well in Falkirk culture.
No, Falkirk culture doesn't write.
Yeah. So that means that throughout the 600 plus years now, culture has not. They've sort of been abrasive to that.
No, because the ones
idea.
that need to write learn the few symbols they need, or if they're shopping and they need to know that, then they know what that sign
Remember,
means.
they're not religious missionaries. They're not there to convert them to Brog.
No, they're not. But
So the fact that they don't read or write probably isn't an issue.
well, at least to the educated.
It's probably not an issue to anyone.
Why?
Because if you're not educated, you don't know it matters. And if you are educated, you prefer that they weren't.
If I'm a mercenary who was raised. No. Actually, I can assume this because you have more than once said that our world is intelligent, or at least somewhat intelligent. That they're not, as shit-kickingly stupid as the Dark Ages were. So a mercenary from Tides.
Yeah, that's actually it's a misunderstanding of things that to say that the Dark Ages were shit-kickingly stupid.
That's a tangent, but you have already told me that the common man knows how to read, where we have strong evidence where most of the common man in the medieval times
didn't know how to read.
Know how to
they
read.
They didn't have to either. And in fact,
Yeah.
in that case, very commonly you had a reason to not teach them.
Yeah, that's the corruption of power. This is a tangent, though, from what I'm trying to get at with the whole writing bit.
Sure.
Is that culturally, right? If you knew how to write, you could use that to your advantage against those who didn't, right? Are there a group of racist assholes out there who are like
who are rapaciously
the Falkirk are stupid because they don't know how to read or write?
Believe that the Falkirk are stupid because they don't know how to read or write.
Is this a... There's 600
Yeah, that's
years...
racist.
No, I'm not saying that's racist. I'm saying how popular is this belief because there's 600 years of unification that's gone on that in any comparable time in real life would have already cemented a language in the kind of union that they do, but it's the Falkirk language. They don't read or write.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they don't speak.
They don't also and it doesn't mean that they don't also speak whatever they're speaking down in Tide's End, or Terse, or Brogo, or Valyria.
But it does mean
possible.
But there does mean that there is a significant difference between the peasant
as a child raised
from
on a plantation.
Fall Creek who goes to Tide's End to just be at Tide's End or to do something at Tide's End versus the peasant at Tide's End. It's like that episode in Samurai Champloo where Mugen is finally confronted about the fact that he always orders the same thing that Geen orders. Every pit stop, every mile house, right?
Yeah.
That would have a menu, right?
Yeah.
Would have a written menu.
Right.
A Falkirk mercenary who didn't learn the letters because he was a child of Falkirk and didn't learn the
bother
letters.
to ever learn letters.
Can't interact in the mile house and go, I want this.
Well, he can speak, not read.
No,
Probably.
he could surely speak. Sure, I want a sake, and that's good enough for sake. But if he ever wants, like, fried pork, right, and they don't have fried pork, and the menu right over there says...
in words he can't read?
Yeah, this perpetuates the idea that Falkirk are
in a restaurant
where
I couldn't read the menu.
More than once in my life.
More than once.
Did you know that... So I've heard anecdotally that these
in one of those restaurants,
these white
one of those restaurants,
like,
the waitress thought I was stupid.
Yeah.
Yes,
because I was asking her how to find a place in her city by the wrong word because I didn't know how to read that language.
I'm saying, is this something that butts up against the Falkirk often? when they go
if they
out
go
of their
outside and they are not learned in
and
other
they're
languages,
not learning.
How are they treated in Sky Pass?
Yeah.
So the people of Sky Pass are, while haughty, good people overall. So they would.
So they're treated like shit because it's a city full of racists, is what you're saying.
They would pat them on the back and say, "Oh, you wee child, how ignorant you are."
Yeah, come to the light of Brog and we will save you. Just learn these letters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted the players need to know where contention
But they wouldn't
comes
whip
from.
them,
Yeah.
cut their hands off, or
Oh.
be like, "Out of the city with you,
No, that-
savage."
That
They would
happens on
instead
the
be
road
like,
outside of Valor when they're like, "Oh, you're Fell Creek. Can you read this?
Yep.
This is a contract of safe passage.
Correct.
If you make your mark here, I will escort you to a new place in the city, safely.
"Yes,
Just sign right here."
yes."
This
You
happens?
dark-hearted fuck.
Right?
Okay.
Well, and then the manacles, because you're talking about the slavers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, this happens.
Are the Fel? Wait, does this?
Those
mean
are
that the
not
Fel-
good people.
Does this mean that the
No,
Felkirk
they
are the
not
most?
good people.
Are the Felkirk the culture that is most affected by the slavers?
They're certainly one of the largest,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Easiest to prey on.
because easy to prey on.
Yeah.
Like Gorai,
For what
easy
it's
to
worth,
prey on.
that
You're
probably...
stateless,
I'm
right?
sorry, I didn't get that.
Well, too fucking
Thank
bad,
you, Cortana.
Go home. You're drunk.
So,
Zero got it.
yep,
They'd be condescending, but they'd probably help.
yep, exactly.
And in Valor, you might
You could
Run
fleece,
Shanghai.
you might get fleeced one way or another.
right.
Um,
And the Gorai as well.
what I was gonna say, though,
because the Gorai are stateless.
as
Yeah.
a Falkirk child, anyone that survived one of these events is going to bring the story back. So there's probably a sort of
Mistrust.
cultural pressure to stay home.
Right. In general, they like it there. It's their way. They're gonna stay
This is
there.
our place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's no one saying you need to get out of that place.
Right.
Instead, what they said was, "Hey, this is your place. Your place cool with our place. Can we all work together?
Yep.
Right on. Come with us."
I'm gonna build a house over there. Is that cool?
Yeah.
It's
And
cool. Right on.
The Felkirk are cool with
Likely-
you building a house over there on their
likely the
land
guys-
as long as you're not a dick.
It's not their
le-
land.
At
Okay.
least, right? They don't have.
Good point. Well
At
said.
least one of the Felkirk that was at the synod
Yeah.
knew how to read and write.
Oh, absolutely. They would have had to.
Well, they wouldn't have had to.
Yeah. Don't forget that language predates the synod. So,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All they would have had to do is speak in a language that everyone understood.
well, the likelihood that someone would come and teach anyone who was interested to read or write every couple hundred years is pretty high.
Yeah.
Right.
You know
So,
what I mean?
just to settle down what kind of language the Falkirk traditionally have and what they have now without the writing, was it like no writing? Like, I hate to say it because they're the only cultures I can come up with, but like certain African cultures where they didn't have any writing, just their language and their stories to go
Native
on?
American culture.
Or
Quite
were
a
they
few
like
Native
Native
American
American
cultures.
culture? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They didn't write. They just spoke. Or they.
Or were they like the
they had the
Vikings and
Lakota,
certain Native?
right. The Lakota would do this thing with their with.
Did they have runes?
Well,
Not
it's
exactly,
knotted.
but yes.
So they would make a rug,
Food
you know,
rings,
a
that's what they're
blanket, a fabric, a textile,
called. Yeah.
right? And that textile would have particular imagery on it and particular knot patterns, and those would tell a story.
Okay.
That's not exactly writing either.
No, it's not even cuneiform. It's pictographs.
Kind of,
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's more. It's even more hands-on and like I don't know. It's more
You're not a
life-wazy.
yeah.
You know.
I understand.
You hold the thing and know the stuff and how
It's,
because you were tribally conditioned.
It's what they did in China before they had the Chinese writing on the bones that
I
the
actually
bones
don't know.
talisman. So they Chinese writings are all supposed to be pictures and different things like that,
They're
but
ideogrammatic.
yeah, they're ideogrammatic. Before, or at least what I was taught in high school, is that before the idiomatic language of Chinese came about, Mandarin came about, that they were small
Some do
representative
zero.
pictures and dots that would represent.
The pictographs in the literal sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, do the Falkirk not do they just not have a language
They
and
don't
they just
have
talk?
the
Or
writing. They just
They don't
talk.
have even runes.
And
like
then not
Okay.
even runes.
Okay.
No letters.
Okay.
What about art? You
Yeah,
said, do
absolutely.
they carve? Do
Yeah.
they paint too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And is their painting
They're-
in any way
they're-
symbolic?
they're
Because maybe
painting-
they do have a language.
So their painting is representational, though they rarely paint an image on a flat surface. They're more likely to create a relief and to paint the relief.
Oh,
They like
okay.
3D
Or
objects.
to carve a three-dimensional
Yeah, I
in the
see.
round.
Yep, I totally get it. Yeah.
And yes, certain colors have symbolic meanings. Certain totemic figures.
So in a way, they
represent
do have
things.
a rendered language, even if they don't have a written language.
Right.
Are they
It's not the story of Jimmy necessarily. It's the story, like, it could be, but that would be more like, here we see this character doing this thing, or this guy doing this stuff.
If
and
it's
then
the
here this
story of
happens.
Jimmy, it's well known, and the symbols represent key moments in the story rather than literally tell the story.
Right.
They harken to it.
There's imagery
Yeah.
from the story. And then you,
Callbacks.
having heard the story, you'll be like, oh,
This talks about Jimmy.
this is Jimmy and the Owl.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Pan's not the best representation because of how their societies are set up and they're very systematic, but they are very much craftsmen, right? And they were good at carving and things with their, like, you could see their old objects and the things that they did. Are the Falkirk, like the Germans and the Japanese engineering, like, did they invent the water wheel? Because they lived next to the
Yeah.
river
They
and
didn't
they
invent
can
it, but they use
carve...
them now.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Now I understand. Like, I was about to ask from there, like, did they know how to create gears out of their wheels so
that's
they
the
could
complex
grind
machinery
things?
that
And
they didn't do.
no, who
They
did
do that now.
Yeah, who did that first? I'm interested.
People before history.
People before. Okay, no, all right, I'm cool with this.
If the archaeological remains we've discussed so far are any indication, probably whoever lived in Titan.
Okay, absolutely. That actually makes a lot of sense.
I'm speculating, just
Right.
to be clear.
Mm-hmm. That's
but
also where most
the
of
concept of
power
gearing,
would come.
the concept of mechanical gearing and that sort of stuff is older than
The fall.
the fall.
Yeah. Okay.
So, who knows?
Who knows? Yes.
Yep, I can't wait till we tell before the fall stories, man. The little lasers and the robots. It's
I
gonna
know.
be so
The
awesome.
spaceships! Gun dragons! In China, Chinese writing is most commonly known as writing.
That's a trip. That's exactly what we call our writing.
I know.
Oh,
It's like parallel evolution.
yeah.
Are you sure about that, baby
Maybe
cannon?
it's
Or
the
do they have a
same
word
writing.
that translates
Whoa.
closely to something that we would call writing? Because I believe that's more true, baby cannon.
So,
Medicine tactic variables be medicine tactic, yo.
exactly that.
All right, well, I think it's probably time to call it a day.
Yeah, because
Have
have we talked about everything?
we nailed all the stories? All the
There's
questions?
still a lot left unsaid.
Governance.
But we
How do they-
always leave things unsaid. So
Yeah.
That's important, though. Governance.
I get the impression there isn't any.
They're communal.
Elders.
Maybe,
Sure.
maybe not.
They're communal.
Remember, it's
Anarcho,
Like-
what is it? An
like the
anarcho
Druids?
in
communist,
revival terms.
Yeah.
It's a city of neighborhoods with no city.
Right.
So every little cluster of buildings probably has its own little set of house rules.
So
So-
even kind of like how the Celtic tribes interacted with each
Yeah,
other?
or like super early Vikings, or
Okay.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or
Though,
like
though it's
the
not.
Rus,
Yeah.
Yep.
Though it's not, is there probably a neighborhood who is like more spiritually inclined, like how in the Celtic tribes there were the clan of druids, and then
There-
the druids went out between everybody and they did their
That's
druid
very
stuffs.
likely, though, only because, for example, the family of storytellers lives
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
Or, do
Okay.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's something I wanted to know specifically for the Aldbor story, so
Sure.
I could
Yeah.
fill in a few holes about how certain people how the Aldbors were formed.
Yeah, how they got to where they are.
But
And they're modern
that's
Falkirk,
good enough.
so
Yeah. Well, they are modern.
they have
Falkirk.
their roots.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I could see a really cool story though in the like sea captain that settles down and opens a.
It's like the room's full of smoke because
I know,
of the
what
light.
the hell
It's
is
the glare.
that?
It's the sun.
Oh, I see. We're fading into dreams.
Yep. It's time to go.
But I was gonna say, I think I could see a really cool story in like the sea captain that decides that they're gonna retire and they move up to Fall Creek and then get involved in whatever happens in Fall Creek and end up becoming the mercenary unit that is the Aldbors.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's a great story right there, actually.
Yeah.
That's a good little little
All right, well,
tidbit.
I
All right.
believe as
That's
you
the
can
only
tell,
thing
as
I
we
needed to
fade
know.
into the marijuana smoke.
Yep.
that
Whoa, fading.
We will see you all later.
Thanks for coming out,
guys.
everyone. We'll see you next time.
I hope
Also,
you
thank you
enjoyed
to
the
the
lore
DOP
talk.
crew for using our for letting us use
Absolutely.
their space.
So next week,
Absolutely, I hear they have cool stuff going on every day of the week.
they do every day of the week.
every day.
In fact, on Thursdays they let me dev stream.
Yep.
Nice.
Do codes.
Next week, we're not going to have a city to talk about.
Yes, we will.
Well, there is one.
Sky Pass and
Already did
not Conquer. I meant to Crown's Rock.
I guess we could do Sky Pass again, but I wanted to start
Again?
this. So you want to be?
We didn't do Sky Pass.
I don't mean again. That's not what I meant.
Yeah.
I meant now.
Okay.
But we wanted to intersperse.
So you want to be a?
Yep.
Yep.
And I think we should start that next week.
Okay.
Okay.
So you want to be a what?
Mercenary.
I don't think so. I think that's too pedestrian.
Okay. Whoa.
Yeah.
So something on like the more
Perhaps.
intellectual class, like
So you
archaeologist.
want to be an archaeologist, or so you want to be an alchemist, right?
That's a good one. How about a magician? Well, what would the life of Triss Marigold be like in
You could do that
Theleston?
one too. That would be fun.
I bring up Triss
Interesting.
Marigold because she's a popular character from The Witcher who had some dark history past
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and thing.
I
Like,
remember.
I knew what you meant. I got the
Well-
imagery.
her story is way more depth.
I know.
In the book. Oh my god. It's great. You guys should read those books.
So yeah, I think that's what. So we'll do that next
All right.
next week. We'll say you want to be a magician,
Okay.
and we'll talk about making
'Cause that's
perhaps
a
one of the
lofty
stupidest
topic.
life choices you could possibly make in the world of Theleston.
Yeah, absolutely. How difficult it is to
Well, what
hide
if I
pigeons
dead?
in your
And then I dead.
You know.
And then I dead.
and where the snapping cage goes.
Hung as a witch. And, you know.
You have to be very smart, very clever, very, very clever in order to be a wizard.
Yep. But until then,
Have a bunch
we
of
will,
body doubles.
We will see you all later, and the DOP crew will be gaming every night.
Don't forget to
Thanks
be
for
awesome.
showing up.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys later, guys. Guys. Yeah.
You guys, right now.
Uh-huh.
But you guys.
You guys.